So I make my masks to fit in. You see, I've studied you. I've observed your behaviors, your reactions. I've learned your expectations, what's appropriate, what's not. I debated a long time about whether or not I should give the specifics behind the video or leave it open-ended. Part of me wanted to leave it open so more people could relate to it. I know we all wear masks to some extent at some point in our lives in some situations, so I felt that if I were to make it too specific, it would take away from the video. But now I do want to give more background on why I made it in the first place. I wanted to show the experience of people like me who don't see themselves as neurotypical. Now, the phrase neurotypical is most often used in autism literature to define people not on the spectrum, but I kind of use the phrase a little liberally here. The phrase neurotypical is starting to be more often used to define those that have a normal or typical neurological development of thought or behavior. So this could be to define people that don't have communication or social skill issues, people that don't have sensory issues, people that don't have chronic debilitating levels of depression, anxiety, or another mental illness, and of course those that are not on the autism spectrum. Some may not agree with this usage, but I don't really know how else to explain it. Many people like me that are not neurotypical often feel a need to put on social masks in order to fit in, whether that be socially, to keep employment, to stay in school, or just to be an independent person that is respected. The experience isn't the same for all of us, but the exhaustion and burnout that can come from wearing masks constantly is very common. The reason I have the line in the video, "I've studied you," is because the literal and intentional practice of studying neurotypical people in order to mimic them and pass as a neurotypical. I remember as early as middle school asking friends about social situations under the veil of being a naive homeschooler or a conservative Christian who's trying to understand the world. But honestly, I wasn't deprived socially at all. I know there's the stereotype that homeschoolers live under a rock, but I had 4 brothers, I was involved in sports, I had friends that were public schooled, friends that were homeschooled, friends that were private schooled. I wasn't deprived socially, but I knew people assumed that homeschoolers kind of lived under a rock, so I used that to my advantage. My junior and senior year of high school, I went to public school for the first time. And it was my senior year that I had my first really serious fight with depression. Like, I was on the varsity basketball team, I had a girlfriend. I had friends that fell into all different types of social groups, whether it be the stereotypical like jocks or artsy kids, theater kids, nerds, the outsiders. And I was keenly aware of how different each group spoke with each other, how they interacted with each other, and how they carried themselves. And I was very aware that I did not feel that I was like any of them. What I also saw was how similar all the groups were at their core. Everyone has the same general wants, needs, and emotions. What changes is kind of how those things are expressed. I noticed things like the popular kids and the theater kids all had like bigger, more animated laughs, and when they were excited, it was a lot more expressed physically. Then maybe some of the artsy or nerdier kids were a little more reserved in how they would express themselves socially. I was a very quiet person, and a lot of that because I felt like I didn't know how to navigate a lot of social situations. I came off as shy, but a lot of it was I genuinely didn't know how to express myself in a way that wasn't going to come across as very odd or different. I mean, looking back, I know I would have been fine if I did express myself in the way that felt normal to me, but because I didn't see or notice anyone else that did things the way I felt I wanted to do them, I was very afraid to let that stuff out. Looking back, I know that there are some people that would have been 100% fine with me being me. Now, I did genuinely enjoy being around different people and kind of piggybacking off what they were doing and how they were acting. But at the same time, I rarely felt like I was really myself unless I was with some of my very closest friends. It wasn't until college that I felt like I had gathered enough social knowledge in order to try to put myself out there and engage people on my own. I more or less scripted every conversation I had and would have cues to know where to take the conversation next. I learned to match facial expressions, to match moods, to match body language, to make sure I was coming across as much like them as possible. Even though I was very confident most of the time, I would panic when things went off script. And really almost all of this was to mask my anxiety issues and my depression, and what I felt was an inability to understand and comprehend and recognize different social cues that I think most neurotypical people would get just like that. And fast forward to now, this last year or so, I put a lot more effort into not trying to mask things. Like 2 weeks ago was a pretty low week mood-wise, and I decided I was going to go into work and not mask it so much. And when I got home at the end of the day, I felt a lot better. I felt I had a lot more energy and I wasn't as mentally exhausted from trying to cover up things, so I felt better for myself. However, the mixed results came from how people would perceive me. I'd have people say to me, "You look tired today, Josh," and I would just be like, "It's just my natural face, actually." And then they'd be like, "Oh, you're so funny, Josh." And then they'd walk away, and I'd be like, "Actually, I'm just depressed." They'd ask if I'm coming out after work with them, and I would be like, "I'm just too exhausted." And I was pretty honest at that point. I told them, like, if I feel like I'm around people much longer, I feel like I'll have a meltdown, And then they were kind of just like, "Oh yeah, those days suck. All right, see you later." The next day I decided to go into work and mask my mood a little more. I actually received a lot of compliments about my enthusiasm and my contagious energy. Now, I do love my job working with kids, and I do feel a lot of joy and fulfillment doing that. And a lot of times my energy and excitement isn't made up because I love doing my job. Now, my coworker that one day said I looked tired, that day, they're like, "Wow, your energy was awesome and it was contagious and I loved it and it was just great to be around you on the floor." And while I know it's kind of my fault for masking things, comments like that make me feel like it's better if I do mask myself for everyone else. Even though it's draining for me, it's better for my family and my friends and my coworkers and the people I'm around. It almost feels selfish sometimes to be in my feelings and not try to make other people smile or feel good. And that's a big reason why I wore my mask. I know a lot of other people do too. It's so that we're not putting our experiences and our emotions and what we see as our darkness, our negativity or bad side onto other people. We don't want people to worry about us. We don't want people to think we're that sad person. There still is a lot of stigma surrounding mental health, and a lot of us are afraid to put ourselves out there. So my goal with this video was to let people know that are wearing these masks, that they're not alone, and that there are people that aren't neurotypical that are in the same boat. And I've been very fortunate to find a lot of friends over this last couple of years that do love me for me, mask or not. It's really important to find people that do value you for what you are, however you are, whatever you're feeling. But a lot of us fear will scare people away in those initial stages of social interaction if they see kind of who we really are and what we really experience. But wearing masks all the time, it really has this effect that worsens the depression, the anxiety, the sensory issues, the stimming, things like that. So with this video, I hope that everyone kind of take a look at themselves and see where they're wearing masks and see how that's affecting them. Now, I want it to be okay, whether you're neurotypical or not, to take off your masks and just be yourself. We can't progress towards a thing unless a lot of us are on board with doing that. And when we see people being themselves and expressing their emotions, whether it be negative or positive, that we would accept that and we would embrace them still. And the people like me that aren't neurotypical, find people that care about you, that you can be yourself around. I've benefited a lot from finding different groups on Facebook or other social media with people that have very similar experiences to me, and we can talk and communicate about how it goes, about what it's like to live an atypical life. And if we start taking off our masks more regularly, I think we'll find out a lot more people are open and are accepting of us, and that we don't have to hide so much. We have a lot to offer the world, and I think being real with ourselves and real with others is going to open up doors for us to be ourselves and share our gifts and share our knowledge and our talents. For the people that know me, if you see me and I look sad or tired, feel free to ask me if I'm okay. Ask if I need anything. Small gestures mean a lot. Ask if I need space or if I want company. And know that if I want to be alone, it has nothing to do with you. It's just that I need my space in order to recharge. The support of people that care about me keep me going and helps me be okay with myself. Whether you're neurotypical or not, it's going to pay off if we all have this openness and acceptance of each other, regardless of mental health, status, or anything like that. And I really hope the mental health videos that I plan on making are going to help start the conversations. Remember, if you are going through something, be sure to reach out. Talk to a family member, talk to a friend, find a counselor. There are a lot of things that can help us in our day-to-day and get through some of those hard times. If you'd like help finding help, check out the links below. Feel free to comment, send me any questions you have, whether it be here, other social media, email, and I'd love to help you out. Remember, you are loved, your life is worth living, and your light is worth sharing. See you later.